9 times out of 10, the data really should lead towards your decision making. And so that's the foundational layer, and the empathy should always be kind of the layer on top of that around how we're executing our strategy and implementing certain tactics to achieve whatever goals that we set. Whatever you want to do is just having a really great foundational knowledge about the function.
Hi, all. Good morning. So today I have Nick with us, who is a small-town guy from Texas who dreamed of making a difference. He was an undergrad in psychology, but realized he wanted to move to HR, so he did. He packed his bags, moved to LA, and 6 months later, he realized that he had to leave his dream city because of having no job, and so he took a job at UPS in Atlanta. He never gave up and eventually got in touch with his current company at Box. During the interview process, he fell in love with the company, the culture, the vision, and what he could do with the company. And then once he got settled in, his dream came true. He went back to LA, started his life again, and here he is being successful as much as he can and making a difference in the world. Let's welcome Nick on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, who is very inspiring, who has taught us to never give up, and let's see what he has to offer. Hi, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm good, Manal. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So, Nick, I touched upon a little about your journey, but would love to hear more about it in a few phrases, if you could.
Yeah, definitely. So, quick summary. Like you mentioned, went to Michigan for undergrad, did 5 years in HR and recruiting, then went to business school at Vanderbilt and switched into marketing, and have taken a variety of different marketing roles. And now I am I'm the marketing chief of staff at Box. So, based in Los Angeles, but the company is in Redwood City.
Okay. So, Nick, I think I'm interested in why HR. What was so special about HR that you wanted to work in it?
Yeah, so it was a lot of career exploration when I was younger, and had considered several different things outside of business. Actually, the first thing I thought I wanted to do, I went to Michigan. It was pre med, and I thought I wanted to go the pharmacy route, and realized I actually didn't want to do that. But shout out to all the pharmacists that are doing the great work there. And then I realized that business was the best route for me, and I've always been enthralled with helping people, and that's obviously HR really guides people in the workplace, and so it just seemed like a very natural fit for me.
Okay. I think a follow-up question would be is what are some of the skills, because you've been in the HR space for a while now, what are some of the skills or characteristics that will make a person be more successful in HR, according to you?
Absolutely. Empathy is number one, which theoretically could ring true for really anything in business, but you really have to be empathetic because you're with people throughout the entire time that they are at a company, right? Like helping them come into the company, helping them grow with the company, and then if they do decide to take another opportunity, you're helping them transition out. So being very empathetic throughout that entire process is crucial. And then something else, again, I think that rings true for whatever you want to do is just having a really great foundational knowledge about the function. So because there's so many different parts of HR that are really crucial to helping, people and the company operate. So whether you get that knowledge from an institution like a school, or you have a lot of mentors in the field. Again, just being really immersed in the world of HR and not only what it is now, but where it might move to in the future.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. I think empathy is definitely something that's very important, and a lot of companies have started realizing that. But that would lead to my next question. You've spoken a lot about empathy on your LinkedIn post as well, Nick. So, how do you find the right balance between EQ and IQ? Because I think a little bit of being both on the extremes is usually hard. So, how do you make sure that you can offer empathy, but you can also be smart when it comes to taking decisions?
That's actually a great question. It's a little hard for me to answer because I think I was born with a lot of empathy. I think it is a trait that can be learned. But I always say my mom was the one who blessed me with a lot of. But yeah, I mean, I think it's honestly being in any organization and making sure you are always making data driven decisions and saying, hey, even though we really want to go this route, the data and analysis that we've done says that we really should go this other route. And I think there are times where if you step back, you might want to. It might actually be in the best interest to do something that might be counterintuitive to the data, but 9 times out of 10, the data really should lead towards your decision making. And so that's the foundational layer, and the empathy should always be kind of the layer on top of that.
Okay. So should the IQ follow the EQ or should EQ follow the IQ when it comes to the decision making?
Oh, I knew you're going to be asking hard questions. um, I think the EQ should follow the IQ. And again, kind of alluding to what I just mentioned as far as like, hey, let's figure out, like, let's let the data drive the decisions that we're making, but the EQ is really how we're making those decisions. I mean, you talk about the economy that we're in right now, right? The data might say, we need to lay people off, X number of people across the entire organization, but your EQ says like, hey, if there's no other way we can do this, this is how we should do this. And I think some companies, unfortunately, have really missed the boat with being kind in that process. But it also might say like, hey, is there a way we might be able to, cut some of the extra stuff without laying people off? So I think the EQ kind of reminds you that, hey, this is a company at the end of the day, but these are also people, and this is their livelihood.
There isn't a right answer for this, Nick, so I think you tackled it perfectly. I think it's very important considering the circumstances in the market right now and the way people are getting laid off. So it's very heartbreaking to see that a lot of people have families to feed and they don't have a job. But I think taking that into consideration, coming up with innovative approaches to retain that talent is something that's very important. So thank you for sharing that. So like Box has been doing well from my research so far. I would love to understand how, as in like how has the market been for your company specifically? Your company has managed to retain talent as well during the hard times. So what's so special about Box? Why should people work for your company?
Yeah, so I have to shout out quite a few people. Really, it's Aaron Levy, our CEO, and our entire leadership team. I mean, you talk about people that our company, they're people that you're excited to work for. They have a vision, they know how to implement it. They are fantastic to learn from and just be in meetings with. And I think a lot of the success of that company has really started from top down, whether it's how we plan and execute our strategy, the culture that Aaron has really kept throughout since he founded the company. Chris, my boss, who's our CMO, Chris Kohler, has done a fantastic job with the marketing department as well. So I think it's a lot of always being flexible in saying like, hey, like these are whether it's the market or customers or anything like that, like having expectations around like, hey, things might change, and we just have to be flexible around how we're executing our strategy and implementing certain tactics to achieve whatever goals that we set. So I think it's been a lot of great top down leadership.
Okay, no, I think if the top leadership is perfect, people can definitely see that, okay, those people are setting a culture that we might have to embody. And if the leadership is so strong, people automatically are drawn to it. They want to be like that. So I can definitely see why people would want to work with your company. Just a follow-up question, Nick, I think a lot of companies came up with different policies when the COVID started, and some of them were flexible, like giving people the option to work from remotely or anything like that. What's something that Box came up with that was innovative that you were like, okay, this company's doing something that's right?
Yeah, so I joined Box in the spring of last year, 2021. So still a lot going on with COVID, but coming out of the throes of the pandemic. And one thing that I noticed as soon as we joined was we did this thing called Fresh Air Fridays, and so that allows us to. So you think about all like the normal U.S. holidays that are baked into everybody's calendar. There are several months where we don't have where it's like everybody's working 5 days a week. We take those months and we pick a either random day or a day or like a holiday that might not be considered a federal holiday but should be celebrated. And it's either, I should say, most of them are Fridays, but sometimes it's a Monday, and everybody has the day off.
Okay.
And I think it's a great way to not only show people like, hey, we're all working hard, like we do deserve time off. So I think that's one. And this is another time off subject, but PTO is highly encouraged at Box. And it's also encouraged that when you do take time off, you are truly off the grid. We always want to be respectful of people's time, and it's one of those things where you can't do your best work if you don't actually have time to fully recharge. So that's another thing. We also were very cautious on opening the doors back, and I think that really spoke volumes to how much our leadership team really cares about the safety of our employees. Not to say that people who went back sooner didn't, but we just took a lot of extra measures to make sure. So I can't remember when we officially opened the doors again, but it was a long time after a lot of other tech companies went back.
Okay, no, I think I can see that your company takes a very empathetic approach, which I could see was that is something that you're very passionate about as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm glad to see that the companies are realizing that candidates, employees should be treated as assets rather than liabilities, and just making their job more enjoyable and more fun, and making sure that they are doing well is something that should be important, is very inspiring. But Nick, other than that, our time is up. It was a pleasure having you as a guest, learning about how far you've come, how you had to leave your dream city, but then you found a way to come back. It's very inspiring, and it shows that if you have a dream, you should always go after it, and it will always come turn into reality.
Thanks so much, Manal. Loved being a part of this.